So we are learning that the iPhone 12 Pro Max in particular seems to be set apart from its little brothers. We've also seen the first benchmarks from the Apple A14 chipset, the one that will be going into the iPhone 12, and it is super powerful. And also loads more Apple news, including Apple TV and all the latest iPhone 12 leaks. So let's get right into the iPhone 12 Pro Max, and the more information we're getting on this phone seems to point to this actually being kind of unique, and not just because of its size. And we learned about 6 months ago from Ice Universe. He actually sent out this post and he was talking about a bigger camera sensor on the iPhone 12 Pro Max, and at the time, very exciting, but a really early leak. But as we get really close to the launch now, it seems like this actually may be happening, and Apple may be putting a unique camera sensor in the iPhone 12 Pro Max. It seems like he thought that the actual camera sensor in the Pro Max is going to be getting bigger. So maybe keeping the same amount of megapixels, so a 12 megapixel image sensor, but a bigger sensor. And obviously that will mean that the pixels themselves have to grow larger to fill up that bigger sensor size. We've really heard nothing else from the supply chain that confirms this, in terms of Sony making some new image sensors for smartphones that may be 12 megapixels and larger. But we also get this recently from Max Weinbach telling us that, yeah, he's excited about the 12 Pro Max's camera as well. There's obviously something going on with this sensor. It's gonna be different or new, and yeah, odds on now it looks to be a bigger sensor for the iPhone 12 Pro Max. So the Pro Max is actually getting bigger than ever before. According to leaks anyway, a 6.7 inch display. That's up from 6.5 inches. And yeah, the bezels are going to be shrinking, so we could maybe have just a similar sized footprint phone, but with a bigger screen. Maybe it will be growing a little bit overall, but it looks like Apple may be just fitting a bigger screen in the same size body, even though the design is changing a little bit, getting the flat edges, slimmer bezels all around, and a bigger display. The iPhone 12 Pro, the non-Max version, also getting a bigger screen than the iPhone 11 Pro. So it looks like Apple are fitting bigger displays in all of these phones for the same size. And of course, we've got a new form factor with the iPhone 12 mini at 5.4 inches. But just to come back to the iPhone 12 Pro Max, we get this post, and this is from, I think, Mizuho Securities, but it's actually looking forward to the iPhone 13, which, yeah, is just crazy. But yeah, Apple are working on that product, of course, and actually a lot of the decisions about it have probably already been made. In any case, this isn't really a leak, but more a prediction based on the supply chain, and you can actually see the main takeaway from this is, well, two things. First is that 120 Hz display in the iPhone 13, which, yeah, is obviously going to happen. But secondly is the camera sensor sizes, and you can actually see 3 different sizes here. So in relation to the 120 Hz, it looks like this year 120 Hz isn't going to come to any of the iPhone 12 models. Apple were trying it, but yeah, it didn't make the cut. And that's really because the new screen technology called LTPO, which allows for variable refresh rates and a low power draw, even with that high refresh rate, it just can't be made in big enough numbers to be made for the iPhone. The only company that's using LTPO displays right now is Samsung in the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra and also the Galaxy Fold 2. Two phones that don't sell in huge numbers, especially the Fold 2. That technology is really great. It's amazing. It's the future. It will be in the iPhone 13 and a ton of other Android flagships next year, I'm sure. But for right now, the technology is new and Samsung can't make it in big enough volume to actually supply it for the iPhone 12. The other screen technology is LTPS. It has a high battery drain, and that's just not what Apple needs. They have small batteries, and yeah, it looks like 120Hz is out. But let's get onto the cameras again. You can see the pixel sizes are definitely increasing. So a 1.4 micron size on a possible iPhone SE in 2022. We don't have to worry about that now. But you can see the iPhone 13 low-end models with 1.7 micron size pixels, which they say is the same as the iPhone 12 Pro Max. This tells us, therefore, that the 12 Pro Max coming in 2 weeks' time has a micron size of 1.7, and that's important because currently iPhone camera sensors have micron sizes of 1.4 microns, so 1.7 is bigger, different, and that ties in with what Max is kind of alluding to and what Ice Universe just came out and said, that the 12 Pro Max is going to have a bigger camera sensor with bigger pixels, and that makes it unique in the iPhone 12 lineup, the first time that it has other unique hardware apart from just being bigger. So I think it's quite exciting for that phone. And then we come to these awesome Geekbench results for the A14 chipset. So really unusually this year, Apple have already released the A14 chip, the new 5nm chip that will be going into the iPhone 12 because they are delayed. It's seen first in the iPad Air and it's been benchmarked. These scores are honestly really impressive from a chipset that we were thinking maybe Apple didn't go all out on power and tried to actually preserve some battery life and tone it down a little bit. Well, these scores basically blow that out the water. So these scores are from an iPad Air tested with the A14 chipset inside, 4GB of RAM inside. The single core score is 1583, the multi-core score is 4198. The chipset is clocked at 3 GHz, so to put that all into context and basically compare it to the iPhone 11 Pro with the A13 chipset, the single core score on that one is 1327, multi is around about 3500 depending on the test more or less. If we also compare that to some Android phones with the Snapdragon 865, then the single core score is around about 900. So the A14 chipset is just leagues ahead of the Snapdragon 865 in the single core marks. The multi-core score on the Snapdragon 865 is around 3200 or 3280. On the A14, it's 4198. So the A14 is like 30% better than the Snapdragon 865 in the multi-core as well. And remember, the A14 is a 6-core, whereas the Snapdragon 865 is a octa-core or has 8 cores. Anyway, these are still early tests, and this is an iPad Air, not an iPhone, but it looks really promising for the A14 chipset. It looks super powerful once more. The real competition though here isn't the Snapdragon 865, which is basically a year old already and is a 7nm chipset. The A14 is a 5nm chipset. So really we're going to have to wait until the end of this year and the start of next year when the new Snapdragon 875 is released in phones. So kind of an unfair comparison to compare the two, but you can see there's some big improvements in the A14. It's also really exciting for that new Qualcomm chipset on 5nm. If you have Android phones, we should be seeing some big improvements in that one too. Also in Apple news, we get some more info about Apple TV. Looks like it is going to be refreshed, and we get this tweet from Fudge on Twitter, who has a very good track record. He tells us that a couple of Apple TVs may be in the works, one with a possible A12 or A12X chip, and then possibly an A14X chip in one of them as well. And this is because Apple are going all in on Apple Arcade. A lot of these games are very resource heavy, need much better chips, and so that's where this leak is coming from. October 13th seems to be the date as well, and it just keeps being confirmed. Nothing's changed, so it's really close. We expect an announcement from Apple soon about the launch date, so watch out for that. Let me know which iPhone you're most interested in, the Mini or the Max, because I think they're both really interesting, but for really different reasons, basically price and hardware. Let me know your thoughts in the comments as always. That's it for now though. Thank you for watching. Please give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one.